You're watching Black Men Talking.
You're watching Black Men Talking.
This is Black Man Talking.
This is Black Man Talking.
Black Men Talking will motivate, communicate, and educate.
You're watching Black Men Talking.
You're watching Black Man Talking.
Black Men Talking is positive, informative dialogue.
Black Men Talking.
Hello and welcome to Black Men Talking. I'm Bill Taylor. Who's talking today? Let's meet the brothers. Saccone Prince, an engineer and multimedia specialist, entrepreneur. Saccone is married. He has 4 children. Meet Lamar Merchant, a financial sales manager and musician, a drummer. He's engaged to be married, and he has a daughter 8 years old. And last but not least, Tony Sipp. Now, Tony is an up-and-coming professional baseball player. He was recently drafted by the Cleveland Indians farm team. So watch out for Tony's name in the majors coming near you real soon. I'm Bill Taylor, retired anchor and news reporter for Channel 4 in Milwaukee, also a broadcaster for 33 years. I'm married with 6 children who are all adults. Defense rest. What's up? What's good?
How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Listen, let's get started.
Okay.
Let's talk about women. Talk about successful female relationships with men, or put another way, how do you make your woman happy? You're married?
Yes, sir.
You have children?
Yeah.
You're a veteran? You told me, are you a master at it? Somebody said, no, it's you. Saccone, what do you think?
Well, my primary focus is understanding what makes my wife happy. And of course, that takes some research and actually takes some homework. You know, you have to study, have to find out what makes her happy. I mean, because it can't just be a blanket answer for all women, you know, because what turns one woman on may not turn another one. So it has to be specific. You have to be able to focus on what that one woman wants.
Yeah, you can't use the formula for your wife or somebody else for sure,
you
right?
can't. No, you
right?
can't.
But I can tell you, there is one common denominator,
Okay.
and that's security. You know, every woman wants to have, the finer things in life, and, they man to kind of take care of them, make that big money.
Yeah.
Because as finance without, romance.
There's no romance without finance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think that one common denominator is the key. But you still have to be able to get to know your mate. It's a daily growth. It's daily education.
Yeah.
Well, what comes first, friendship or love?
Friendship is the key.
You go for that too, Tony?
Yeah.
Elaborate for me.
With friendship, I think that with friendship comes love. As you grow to know somebody, you grow to love them. That's basically how it always turned out for me. Every time I start off just getting to know somebody, and then work your way into a relationship, then you find out that you really just love everything about them.
So you don't believe in love at first sight?
Yeah, I believe. but also, that's something that don't come every time. What comes more often is being friends with somebody first, and then becoming to love them. So I believe in it, but it's just that's what comes.
Okay.
Well, can we define happiness? How do you make a woman happy?
Ooh.
Aside from the obvious of sexual relations, intimate relations, what makes a woman happy?
Yes.
You say yes to all of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for the most part, just being there. Being there for the little things, I guess. I'm not a professional in the relay. I'm still trying to work on mine now, but just being there for the little things, just little details, smaller things that we probably look over as men.
The little things that count?
Yeah.
Well, my wife and I joke about, we've been married 37 years, knock on wood. That's this part of the cranium. But we say the first 38 years are the hardest, which means it is work.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We'll speak to that.
Yeah, it's absolute work. I've been married before, and every day, when you find something new about that person, you have to grow. You have to work on it. If you get into an argument, men have a tendency of keeping a lot of pride, and we don't like to say we're sorry or, my bad. Or,
What you mean by that?
Yeah. And we always go on the defensive. We don't always look at their side of it. And I think, it's communication. You hear that? My parents just always told me that, communication is the key to any relationship.
And that's so true. It is work. In fact, I've often shared with my friends and colleagues how I've worked manual labor. I've done labor that has been intellectually challenging. But as far as marriage, it is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But it's a labor of love. I mean, you can't just lay down and stop working at it, because if you want to have a good relationship, a wonderful relationship, you can't punch out. You can't clock out. I mean, and I've said that I have never worked harder in my life than I have since I've been married. I've worked in jobs and I've quit. I've moved on to other things, but in this marriage with my wife, I have committed myself, to the success of our marriage.
Brother, you're making points. You're making points today. Your wife's not even in the studio audience. But speak to that work. I mean, I get in trouble when I don't express myself as best as I should. I'll be very candid about that. If I hold something in and decide to say it later, then by that time I'm really angry, and I'm coming around third, coming home then. Yeah. So what do you do to alleviate that, if anything?
I mean, I think the thing is really to kind of diffuse any stress or, anxiety or situation right in, nipping in the bud, because if you let situations linger on, it's not going to get any better. It's just going to get worse. So I found, just kind of nipping things in the bud, addressing the issue up front. I've always found that to be a more successful route. Yeah, you're probably going to have some tension, and there's going to be some fire in your eyes, and you're going to be upset. But I think the respect level, from a man, I always believe that the man should be the leader in a relationship and lead by example. Kind of drop your pride and just kind of, say, hey, babe, I'm sorry. This is what we're going to.
The okay babies? Okay, baby.
That's
okay,
right.
baby.
That's right.
Well, sum up how you feel about male-female relations and what's going to make it work for you.
Male-female relation, I mean, it's tough because we're different breeds, I guess.
I hope so.
But I think what makes it work for me, just having somebody that I'm compatible with, having somebody that really you can be around all day without wanting to just push them away from you. What makes it work for me, being close to them. I find out that a lot of times talking over the phone just don't get it. A lot of times you need to see them a lot.
So that's a 22-year-old brother there. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
But for the most part, right, like I'm in a fairly new relationship now. But what's been working for me, just being around, let them know that you're there,
Okay.
and just letting them know, like you said, security. Just let them know that you can kind of be there for them. When
20
they need you.
seconds.
Because they can be security in a lot of different ways. It can be financial security, emotional security, and I found, I'm 31, spiritual security. Just like I said, being a leader, if you come to the table with a spiritual growth and maturity, then I think that'll bring her in, as well. It's all about having equal yoke.
So, Coney, you get the last kick.
I think that the biggest challenge is being able to connect on every level, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, and having a common goal, a common vision that is thoroughly communicated. So that's my take on it.
Communication is the key, apparently.
Yep, it's the common denominator.
When we come back, we're going to talk about pop culture, specifically hip-hop music. Is it using its power correctly? Black Men Talking when we return. This is Black Men Talking. I'm Bill Taylor. We're talking about pop culture this segment, specifically music, hip-hop music, whether it's using its power properly. With lyrics like songs like Laffy Taffy and Pimpin' All Over the World, and others we could name, does that degrade women? I mean, obviously it does, but how do you feel about it?
Well, in fact, the sad part about it is that our culture is becoming more and more acceptable to music like that. I feel that it paints a picture in the minds of the listener that lowers the value of women. But of course, it's married with an attractive beat, you know, some.
I can dance to it, got a good beat.
Right.
There you go.
But on a subconscious level, it's reducing women to pieces of meat, if you will. And it can be good for our overall society.
I got a daughter who's trying to break into that business. She says as soon as she does, she's going to have naked men behind her. That's an exaggeration.
Ew.
While she's fully clothed,
Ew.
just to make a point. Right. But I mean, good for Ludacris to go to the continent and interact with people in Africa. But I'm tired of the pimp concept. The pimp concept has been around since day one.
Yeah.
Jump on that, Lamar.
I think it's a fascination because I'm from Chicago, and I always thought that the pimp game was originated in Chicago. You see a lot of pimps. It's fascinating. It's almost like you're running a business, an illegal business almost. And to be honest with you, even though there are a lot of women are viewed as in a degrading view,
Fashion?
yeah. To be honest with you, I mean, if you really, I've watched a program on HBO. A lot of the women that are on the streets because they want to be there. You know, they feel that daddy is taking care of me, my pimp is taking care of me, and they'll actually go to clubs and look to get recruited.
But to have that in our music, to be bombarded with it every day on BET or Power One or whatever it is. Right. Pimping has been around since day one, as I said before. Iceberg Slim was a legend. The Mac is a legend. We have not properly buried that image and that concept. Speak to a young brother about what it means to young men growing up.
I mean, the whole pimp concept is, like you see it, like, because I remember the Mac, and they make it almost seem good to be a pimp or whatever, but I think for the most part in the pop culture today, it's more of just entertainment, because you never know what the real character is like. It's like we was talking about actors earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You never know if that's their character or if it's their real, that's how they are in real person.
But that's my point. He may be an actor in that video,
Yeah.
but he's making an impression on a young, impressionable mind somewhere in the USA, or maybe in the continent of Africa, for that matter.
In fact, that's the point I was going to bring out, was that there has to be a clearly defined line between perception and reality. Oftentimes in the music videos, you see these block parties and everyone out doing their thing, but the reality is how often does that happen? Mm-hmm. The image that's being put on the screen have our young kids thinking that if you're not doing this, well, then you don't have it going on. But the reality of it is that how often does that environment exist?
It's fantasy based.
I think it's more so to sell records. It's
Oh,
all
yeah.
about sales.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So if you can flash a 10-second, portrayal of a block party or women in bikinis and they're all around one guy,
Right.
that's giving them an image, and that's really is all behind the record companies and their whole thing of selling records.
Let's
Right.
go there. Let's call a spade and not a big spoon, as they say. It's not only hip hop music that's degrading. Some blues songs. I heard a Lee Shot Williams cut a couple of weeks ago. I was amazed it even made the air.
Yeah.
The innuendo and sometimes real graphic. But did we as consumers and listeners somehow drop the ball when radio began to push the envelope maybe 20 years ago and didn't say anything about what's coming into our home and on our car radios and now on satellite radio? Where should it stop?
Well, I think because of the fact of free speech in this country, I think whether it's an individual artist or a record company, they want to use that law to their fullest. to gain a profit. So, you know, they feel they can say and do whatever they want.
Well, I'm a defender of first rights, First Amendment of speech. But people like Red Fox made a living for years with records that you couldn't play on the air, and that was fine. He still made his money. Adults bought it, adults listened to it in the confines of their home, but those records were not on the air. Some of what we hear and see now is almost pornographic.
Yeah.
What's the answer?
Parents. I think, you know, when I was growing up, I remember when Delirious came out with Eddie Murphy. I didn't see that until I was, you know, like a junior or senior in high school, you know, because my parents wouldn't allow me to view the tape. I mean, I remember when they were playing in the living room, my parents made us stay in the back of the house. So, I mean, I think it all comes down to, you know, the parents and how they monitor what their kids are seeing and listening to.
Some of the first accounts of the Iraqi war were talking about how that culture, Iraq culture, didn't want American culture in that country because it brought with them that smut, if you will,
Right.
or negative portrayal of people and women. Do you understand why they may say something like that?
Yeah, I do, because I think with people with religious boundaries, with strong religious backgrounds also, they kind of shelter their children. They like to guide them, almost have a hand over them almost. But today in our culture, it's like we try not to hide anything. We let them see way too much for our age sometimes.
Right, that's so true.
So I guess in that way I could see it, but in the way that we are, it's good to let smaller children see certain things. Like I have a little girl, she's 2. There's certain things I won't let her see. And I see things that when I go over to my cousin's house, I see that they have their children around a whole lot of, I don't even feel comfortable with my child being there, and they have their children. And you're kind of stuck in a predicament. Like, do I take my child away from this and put it like my child's better than that, or do I just sit back and just let it happen? Because they're letting their children do it, why not let mine? So I think a lot of people get caught up in the whole peer pressure thing, and I don't want my child to be too good. Their child's doing this and that. So I mean, I'm a young parent, so I kind of get the best of both worlds of it, because I'm pretty much still a child almost, also because my mom, she still has a big influence over me, and I'm pretty satisfied with the way she raised me, but a lot of things that I could have saw earlier, she kept me back from it. I think that's a big thing that's going on.
Okay, bottom line, what do we do about this? If we have a distaste for what's being presented in our homes via TV or radio, what do we do?
Well, in answering that question, I want to say this. I've oftentimes told my daughters that I'm not raising children. I say I'm raising adults. They ask me, they say, but we're not adults. I say, do you wait until you get to school to get dressed for school? He said, no. I said, do you wait till you get in the pool to get dressed for the pool? He said, no. I said, well, you don't wait until you get an adult to get ready for it. You get ready for it while you're young. And on that note, helping them to understand that the stuff they want to be exposed to, stuff that they're curious about, it will come in time. But if they are rushing to learn and see and do everything, I said, well, then after you've done everything, then what's left? What, death? Are you rushing to die? And then they were like, no.
That's a hard lesson.
Yeah.
Having raised 6, at a certain age, everybody says, oh, Dad, everybody's doing it, so therefore I want it. So what do you want to say about that?
I have a 8-year-old daughter, and I think when I grew up, when my parents told me no, without an explanation why, no.
Because I said so.
Right. And I always believe that, that wasn't good enough if I told my daughter no, because then, she's going to think, well, I don't like her anymore, or I'm not a good dad, or whatever, so that she'll resent me. So I'll take it to the point of explaining why she can't have this, or explaining why she can't see this. You'd be surprised. Children are a lot more intelligent than we think.
Well, in fact, they have access to a lot more information. And so the days of just saying no those days are kind of going away. We have to, as you said, explain why this is bad, why this is wrong.
But garbage in, garbage out. I was at a mall recently, and I don't know the name of the store, and I probably wouldn't say it anyway. But there's a certain chain of stores that caters to the what they call them, tweeners. They're not quite teen girls, and they've got the lip gloss on and the tight dress on and the low cut socks and the heels, and you know, and they've got their own little boutique in there. And so I'm wondering what's going on in parents' minds to promote that so soon.
Right.
So soon. Paul Robeson said, as artists, our art should uplift the race. And I don't think that Marcus Garvey said, up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will, had that in mind when we talk about this kind of culture, or this turn in our culture. Yeah. This is Black Men Talking. When we come back, we'll talk about leadership in this country, black leadership, and our trustee organizations. Are they doing enough to get the young in? More in a moment. Welcome back to Black Men Talking. This segment, we're talking about leadership in the country, black leadership, and trustee organizations that have been around for years. Are they doing their job? Let's find out. Let's find out whether the NAACP, the Urban League, the Nation of Islam, etc., are still viable in this country. Anybody can jump in. What do you think?
That's really hard to say. I think it's on a city-by-city basis. I found that a lot of cities up north, you know, black organizations are a little bit more prominent and more involved in the black community. Here in the South, I really haven't seen that as much. And I've been in larger cities such as New Orleans or even smaller, you know, country or towns. And there's no, if something's arising within the black community or a leader or, you know, I just don't see any presence whatsoever. If something, you know, that needs to call for a boycott or, you know, some type of voice for the people.
A lot of these organizations were started to, as Maulana Karenga says, speak their special truths to its people. And so is that being done today? We had a recent march in Washington. I don't know if the numbers were what the organizers wanted them to be, but it looked good. Did it do any good?
Well, I think it did, at least from the standpoint of raising awareness. But as far as the organizations on a national level, I think that they lack one common voice, one common focus. I think that, in fact, they may be viewed as having their own agenda individually, and we are not collectively coming together, trying to achieve a common goal. And in fact, as far as their presence in our communities, I think that an even greater campaign, you know, should be launched to involve young people at an early age, in order to help them to understand our history as well as the actual struggle that got us to the point to where we are now.
Mm-hmm. How do we do that?
Just bring it back to the roots. Just go back to the way they started out. Earlier, you know, it was stronger. You knew what black people were fighting for. You know, it kind of got lost in the generation.
That's because, you know, I think back in those days, black people were catching hell, not only emotionally but physically.
Right.
So nowadays, you know, we're able to get our degrees, get our jobs, get our homes, acquire real estate, and so we kind of, those days, we kind of forget. We have voluntary amnesia almost.
Yeah, you gotta also, sometimes it's a little harder to get to those things though. I mean, with me playing sports, I mean, you go through certain things that, I mean, you shrug your shoulder at and you kind of have to shrug it off. You're like, okay, I'm here, I'm still doing okay, but we still go through the same hell that they went through back then, but it's a little more quiet now.
Yeah.
So. Like a line in Parliament Funkadelic years ago, we have overcome. Have we overcome? What's going to endear these organizations to young people today? What do they need to do?
I think they need to make a concerted effort to reach young people on their level with issues that are relevant to them. In fact, back in the 50s and 60s, we had a common struggle. And that common struggle, it actually drew us together. Well, now we've somewhat been dissimulated, at least from the standpoint of not having that sort of commonality. And that has it's been a real pitfall, because it has not allowed us to unify, to focus on finishing what was started.
What's preventing us from unifying
Trust.
and finishing what started?
Trust.
Why?
Yeah, I would say
I think since slavery, or since the end of slavery, or during slavery, I think the trust in the black nucleus of the family has been dissipated. I read up on an article from the 1700s.
Willie Lynch?
Willie Lynch. And it
Tell us
just-
what Willie Lynch is right quick.
well, Willie Lynch was a European that he came to the United States to give the master plan on how to keep the black slave
In check.
in check, pretty much. And even after slavery, keep us in check mentally.
So basically it pitted one against another, light skin against dark skin, male against
Absolutely.
female, young
Absolutely.
against old. And that prevails today, you're saying?
Absolutely.
And I think that we have to identify it as a systematic approach to keeping us in those mental chains.
Yet, if I were to be critical, and I don't want to blame the victim when I say this, but we will cling on to some of everything except what's ours. Right down from dress to music. We let other people take our music and take credit for it. We don't like to wear our traditional clothes from Africa, for instance. That's a put down, and some will laugh at every traditional African thing that's positive. Kwanzaa, for instance. So what do we do to bridge this gap? I think there's a renaissance of people becoming more involved in that kind of thing, but it's not getting out to the masses necessarily. How do we do it?
If you want to say, if you want to bring it to my age group, I say the most influential thing that we have going on for ourselves now is the pop culture and the music. If you can kind of collaborate with, I say, videos and everything, things that we see every day, because they kind of guide and have a hand over everything that they want to be cool at the time. That's why they can market whatever they want to market. And who's to say you couldn't market your culture and where you came from? I mean,
Let me put you on the spot. Who is they?
I mean, they is everybody that's pretty much watching. When I say they, it's pretty much anything peer, any of your peers, and anything that influence you to think the way you want to think.
Okay.
But I think in order for something like that to work, you would have to get the artist involved in it, and they would have to have a passion for communicating, you know, the pride, the self-awareness, if you will, to the young people, because that would come out in their music, it would come out in their videos. But if you don't have that, well, you know, then you run into a roadblock of you know, getting that information out.
And to their credit, some musical aggregations did do that in the past.
I have a concern. I mean, every time there's a black leader that's or an organization, they'll go to one city, and that one city is Washington, D.C. How about making a national tour? If you want to reach the masses, go to every major city in the United States.
Takes money.
These organizations have money. I think every organization, they receive money from either the government or independent people that's involved in the organization. But if you have a great cause, if you have a purpose, and you present that purpose, I think people would invest in it.
Armchair question. Any value in certain organizations recreating, say, Saturday schools to teach culture and to teach how to unify and to how to interact and to empower these organizations even further?
Yes, I would think that there is. But I've learned for anything to have any sort of lasting effect, it has to be consistent. I mean, for it to really drive home the point. So we must be prepared to consistently, provide that.
Maybe our political organizations need to do like family heads, and that is prepare the next generation to continue the struggle. More Black Men Talking in a moment. Welcome back to Black Men Talking. If you're of African descent, it's probably happened to you, discriminated against, stereotyped. The movie Crash recently brought it out in graphic terms. Let's talk about it. Can you believe it's still happening in 2005, 2006? Has it happened to you?
Well, I do believe it is happening, and it's still happening. It hasn't happened to me recently, and in fact, it's primarily because I limit where I go. But in fact,
that's a big but. You've changed how you travel or how you go because of situations that have happened to you?
Well, I would say that my lifestyle has changed, which has actually kept me home more. I mean, to where I, in fact, would go out and frequent establishments and stuff, which would have me out in the late or wee hours of the morning. That's not the case anymore. In fact, I'm generally in by sundown, unless there's something else going on. But the movie brought out a lot of, it had a lot of emotions in it, which I could relate to a lot of the characters and stuff that they've dealt with. Even, in fact, when I was younger, I had to deal with, and I have been pulled over.
Right.
I mean, but I had to deal with that during that time. But I did learn from it.
What did you learn?
I learned that you can't say certain things, you can't wear certain things, you can't play certain music. Growing up in Chicago, I was pulled over about a dozen times as a teenager and even in college. I remember I got pulled over, the policeman said I was speeding and I was going 3 miles under the speed limit. But by telling him I wasn't, it was almost an argument. So he pulled me over and threatened to put me in jail, and it gives you a sense that you can't do anything about it because I brought it to my parents' attention. They called the police department, tried to follow suit, and it was just swept up under the rug.
Black men are talking about what to do about this. What do you say, Tony?
As far as what to do, there's not a whole lot you can do by yourself. I say you kind of have to link up with other people and kind of get a group, because one person alone just won't make a whole lot of impact. I say with unity comes a little more power and get your voice out there a little more. So that's basically what I would say. Just get somebody, if you don't know what to do, find somebody that would know what to do, and kind of unify and get a bigger group and make your voice a little bit louder.
There are some communities and families in communities who have gone to teaching their young men especially how to handle being pulled over in traffic, for instance. What to say, how to address the officer, how to get the badge number of the officer, how to get the squad car number on the squad car, and enabling you to file a complaint later. You see any validity in that, and should that be widespread?
I think, there is validity in that. However, when you see those flashing lights behind you, the anxiety level just goes to another level.
Of course.
So you don't even think about, I need to get the badge number, or I need to get the, his last name, or, the squad car number. You're just thinking survival. You're in a survival mode. Right. I can't say, I can't, look at the policeman wrong, or that's it. Even the case in New Orleans where you see the guy getting beat down by police officers caught on tape, right. Or even back, 13 years ago with Rodney King situation. Mm-hmm. you know, you're thinking, well, you know, will it be justice if I did get put over and there is discrimination or there is abuse? You know, will something happen?
If, just being the devil's advocate here, if we are indeed the victims of this poor treatment, is it up to us to change our way of dealing with it? A la Saucony, don't go out much anymore, as the old song said? Or is there another arm of defense we can have?
I say stand up. Stand up and go out. Don't change anything, because, as you know, like he said, society can change your whole lifestyle if you let it. But I say just keep doing, go against the grain, and no matter, even if you get stereotyped, go out. And what people think of you is, that don't mean that's who you are, you know? That's what they're thinking, and people's thoughts, it really can't change a lot, but if it changed the way you act, then it did more than what it was supposed to do. So I say your best way to just change everything, change the way people look at you, the way they think, is to be you. Go out and be you. Don't let their thoughts control the way you walk and the way you talk.
Keep it real.
Yeah.
In fact, you know, I oftentimes tell my daughters, don't let someone else define you. You know, don't let someone else tell you who you are. If anything, you tell them. Mm-hmm. And I look at my role as a parent, with me and my wife, in helping them to write their own definition of who they are. And that way, when someone comes up to you and tells you something that doesn't confirm who you are, who you know yourself to be, then you can dismiss it, you know, regardless of who it is.
There's a word in the Kiswahili language spoken in Kenya. It's kujijagalia. It means self-determination, being able to define yourself. I want to thank Saucony and Lamar and Tony for joining us on this broadcast, Black Men Talking. Black Men Talking, hopefully we come to a station near you. In the meantime, do something positive. Keep the dialogue going. I'm Bill Taylor. Good night.